Good evening and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the April 17th, 2018 meeting of the Downers Grove Village Council. It is my privilege to call this meeting to order. There are copies of our agenda on either side of the room. If you haven't already done so, feel free to pick up a copy and you can follow along with tonight's proceedings. There will be multiple opportunities for public comment, both with respect to the items that are on our agenda tonight, as well as a segment which is under item 4, which is reserved for public comments of a general nature. At that point in time, any members of the audience who wish to address the council will invite you up to the podium. Please tell us who you are, and we'd welcome to hear from you with respect to anything of a general nature that is not on tonight's agenda. But first, it is our proud custom to begin our meetings by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. So at this point, I ask everyone present to please rise and join us in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much for joining us. I'd now like to ask our fine village clerk, April Holden, to please call the roll.
Commissioner Wallace? Here. Commissioner Earl? Here. Commissioner Waldeck?
Here.
Commissioner White?
Here.
Commissioner Jose?
Here.
Commissioner Burnett?
Here.
Mayor Tully?
Here. Thank you very much. That brings us to item 3, which pertains to minutes of past council meetings. We have one set of minutes to review and approve tonight. Those are our regular council meeting minutes from April 3rd, 2018. If there are no changes, comments, corrections, or concern, I will ask for a motion to approve those minutes, please.
Mayor Tully, I move that this council approve the meeting minutes from April 3rd, 2018 as presented.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved unanimously. Just like that, we're at item 4 already, which is reserved for public comments of a general nature. So, if there are any members of the audience who have any questions or comments of a general nature with respect to things that are not on tonight's agenda, please come out to the podium, tell us who you are, and we welcome hearing from you. Any questions or comments of a general nature? Very good. We'll move on then, hearing none, to item 5, which is our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented? Please.
Mayor Tully, I move that this council approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Any questions or comments of any members of the audience with respect to any of the items on tonight's consent agenda? Any questions or comments from members of the village council? Hearing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl? Aye. Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Burnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The consent agenda passes unanimously. That brings us to item 6, which is our active agenda. We have 2 items on tonight's active agenda, items 6A and 6B. First, 6B, do I have a motion to adopt an ordinance to rezone a portion of certain property located at 2200 Warrenville Road?
Mayor Tully, I move that this council adopt an ordinance to rezone a portion of certain property located at 2200 Warrenville Road as presented.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to this item? Any questions or comments from members of the village council? Hearing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl? Aye. Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Burnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye, that matter passes unanimously and brings us to item 6B as in boy. Do I have a motion to adopt a resolution approving the final plat of subdivision for 2200 Warrenville Road?
Mayor Tully, I move that this council adopt a resolution approving the final plat of subdivision for 2200 Warrenville Road as presented.
Second.
Questions or comments on this item from members of the audience? Questions or comments from members of the village council? Hearing none, I will simply welcome Green Bay Packaging to Downers Grove. Thank you very much for choosing us. Congratulations and best wishes on the new facility. Look forward to a very successful project and many fruitful years in our community. Welcome. With that, roll call, please.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl? Aye. Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Burnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye, the matter passes unanimously, and that brings us to the end of our active agenda. And once again, congratulations and welcome, and thank you for choosing us. That brings us to item 7, which is our first reading or our workshop agenda. We have a number of items on the workshop or first reading agenda, and here the procedure is a little bit different. Typically, village staff is asked to present the items to the village council, and we'll typically ask any questions or make any comments first, then we'll turn it over to the audience for any questions or comments, and then probably come back to the village council if there's anything further. It is not a situation where we take any final action at this point in time. This is for discussion and consideration purposes only. And with that, I will turn things over for the presentation of the first reading or workshop items to our village manager, David Fieldman. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Tully. Thank you so much. As you mentioned, there are 7 items appearing on tonight's first reading agenda, but there are really 4 topics for discussion. The first items A through D, will be presented by our Community Development Director, Stan Popovich, and they concern the property commonly referred to as Power Mart. Stan.
Good evening, Mr. Popovich.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. As Manager Fieldman noted, this is the Power Mart property at 2125 Ogden Avenue. They're in front of us tonight for an alley vacation, a planned unit development, a rezoning, and special uses. Properties at the southeast corner of Belmont and Ogden here, located in the circle, and we can see the property outlined in blue there. As you may remember, this came before the council in November of last year with some different entitlement options. So based on council direction, this item went back to the Plan Commission at a March public hearing to discuss some changes in the plan. Now, the plan in general stayed the same, the layout stayed the same, the building sizes have changed slightly, but the site plan and the location, the layout has stayed generally the same. There are 5 key changes that have happened. The entitlement change, which is the one, so now they're asking for an alley vacation, a planned unit development, a rezoning associated with the planned unit development, and then a special use for the drive-through for the restaurant, and then a special use for the gas station part there as well. The alley vacation payment has been increased from $5,000 to $10,000. There's been exterior building material change, so they used to be shipping containers, which are aluminum panels, but now they're going to be fiber cement board with a brick and stone appearance. Also, as the conditions of approval, is the construction of the 2 buildings must occur at the same time. And then same thing with the occupancies. We would issue both occupancies at the same time for both of the buildings there. So those are the 5 key changes from when it was previously before you as well. This is an image of the outside of the main gas station building there. So principally a brick appearance there, and then that's the west elevation that you can see from Belmont. And then this is the north elevation, which would be the principal elevation you would see from the Ogden Avenue there as well for the restaurant building. As we discussed back in November, it's a catalyst site. It eliminates 2 curb cuts. It is a corridor commercial use with the restaurant, drive-through, and the automobile service gas station there. No automobile service, I apologize, I misspoke. It's a gas station and a convenience store. And then these are the entitlements that they're requesting. As I mentioned earlier, and the Plan Commission found that those standards were met for approval. If there's any questions at this time, I can answer those for you, Mayor, and Bill with Power Mart is here as well tonight.
Very good. Thank you very much. I'll start, as mentioned, with the village council, see if there are any questions or comments on the second round. Questions or comments? Commissioner Walbeck, you look like you're jumping out of your seat.
Just about. First off, Mayor, I'd like to thank you that typically when we get to this portion of the agenda, the first reading, you take time to explain what a first reading is and its purpose, which is questions and discussion and ideas. And sometimes we have ideas that are outside the particular issue, but you do take that time. And you also stress that no decisions are made at that point. And it takes the place of the old workshop we used to have. And also compliments to Mayor Pro Tem White for doing the same thing when we get to that part of the agenda, so that the public knows what a first reading actually is. And if they don't get it the first time, at least they get it the second or third time. Unfortunately, I think some on the dais still don't understand what a first reading is about, because when this issue came before us in November, there was questions and discussion going on, and that particular person went out on Facebook and tried to gin up a crowd, posting misleading information, and I found that very, very disturbing. But I am glad that the petitioner has come back with this site plan. I thought it would be back in 1 or 2 weeks after our last meeting. It took a little longer, but I think the effort was well worth it. As I stated back in November, one of my concerns was the neighborhood input. We had a resident come before us maybe a couple months before that who had a number of complaints about a restaurant with a drive-through on Ogden Avenue And some of the complaints include like trash in the parking lot that managed to spread around through the neighborhood, an enclosure that was attracting various varmints, some of them unhealthy. So I had a concern for the neighborhood and what we were doing with this particular project. And then as I read through the Plan Commission draft, there was some comments in there that concerned me both about neighborhood notification and the fact that as part of our process, we're supposed to notify residents. And so Mr. Lavoie was here at the time representing the petitioner, and I just want to say that he did an absolutely fabulous job of explaining the trials and tribulations and the efforts that were made to get to neighborhood contacts. And I thought he did an excellent job. It was probably the best I've heard since I've been up here and even as a sitting out in the gallery. So, that was, neighborhood notifications are extremely important. They're also part of our process. And so I am completely satisfied that was done properly. The second issue I had was with the sale price of the alley. It just struck me as being rather low compared to other vacations that we've had. And I asked staff to go back and take a look at it. And they worked with the petitioner, and I'm very happy that we doubled this, that we got double for the sales price. Definitely worth asking. And I know when we convert public property to private property, we could always have a discussion as to whether we should give a fair price or get as much as we can on behalf of our residents. And I think I prefer to go for getting as much as we can for the residents when we sell property like this. So I think doubling the amount was a good move. I appreciate that. Also, Ogden Avenue is a challenge because it has so many what we would consider small lots and shallow lots, and they're very hard to redevelop. And so you want to avoid creating more shallow, small lots. And the petition that came before us back in November would have created such a lot. And I think we wanted to avoid that. If something went wrong, it would be hard to redevelop that particular piece of property. It's also noted that on the Facebook conversations, they're more concerned with personalities than issues, and they weren't familiar with the history. Back in, normally you get a buyer, developer, has a plan, comes in, works with staff, they bring it to us, and we work it out, and hopefully it gets approved. But not everything we approve gets built, because there may be financial considerations, whatever. Not everything goes through the way it's planned. And in some cases, we approve things and they fail. And I think that's basically what happened in this case. The same petitioner who's before us now came to us in 2008, had a plan. Unfortunately, it didn't work out the way we all hoped. And so now he's before us again. But in the meantime, this property was allowed to deteriorate. It had problems. Staff spent a deal of time trying to get the petitioner to keep the property up to code. There were citations made, and they had difficulty with that. And in the meantime, tens of thousands of cars are going by this corner, and they see this blight, and they wonder what's going on. And when they see something that comes up, the people on Facebook apparently were willing to give anything to fix up that property. But I wanted to make sure that we did our best to make sure that this property, if the project failed again, that we wouldn't fall into deterioration and go through the same things that we had before, namely the small shallow lot, and the other deterioration problems, the blight that you could see. I wanted to do our best to avoid that. And the petitioner and staff worked hard. I'm sorry it took so long to come up with this, but I think it's a much improved plan. I think it'll look better. I think it decreases the chances that if something should go wrong, that we will have a similar problem. So I was very happy with that. Also, another comment, the Facebook Illuminati, we're willing to take just about anything, I think, and I think that was unfortunate. Someone sending it back, we got a much improved product. It's something that I think I can support. Also, the Facebook intelligentsia didn't particularly like questions and discussion in a workshop atmosphere. And I was referred to as a stubborn idiot for trying to do what was best. Well, if reading the material, reading the packets, and expecting us to follow a procedure, the legal procedures of notification, if that makes me stubborn, then I'm stubborn. If worrying about the sales price of the property and trying to get the best when we convert public property to private property, if that is being stubborn, then I'm stubborn. And if worrying about the neighbors in the neighborhood when something goes in, if that's being stubborn, well, I'm stubborn. If worrying about the possibility of future blight and trying to do the best for the redevelopment of Ogden Avenue, if that's being stubborn, I'm stubborn. I'm very proud to be stubborn when I'm working on behalf of the residents of Downers Grove. And I think the outcome from the last workshop, or the last first reading, was a very positive result. So I thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments? Commissioner Jose?
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. This question is actually for staff. I'm just wondering what the history on that alley is and what the village paid for it, if anything.
Well, it was dedicated when the land was developed, so it was provided to the village through the subdivision process when the land was developed.
So we got it at no cost?
Yes.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Any further questions? Commissioner Earl?
Yes, I'd like to thank staff and the petitioner. This is a much improved product from the first one we saw. The planned unit development is much more suited to this location and the depths of the lots, and there's the drive-through is a little better situated, and things are just with just some minor tweaking, this was made a whole lot better. So I'm very pleased, and I want to thank everybody for all their hard work. And Commissioner Waldeck was very vocal, as was I, when this came up the first time. And as a result, I think we've managed to tweak it into a better project for everybody. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments from members of the council? Commissioner Barnett? Commissioner White?
Go ahead, Bill.
Well, just one very brief comment. When I was looking at the one lot versus multiple lots for this, I looked at the project where there's the Chipotle and the BMO Harris, and that was one lot. So I think as a general principle, we should try to avoid subdividing on Ogden Avenue since the lots are very small to begin with. And so therefore, single lot PUDs in situations like this, unless the property is considerably larger, I think is a good thing to go in the future. And turning this into a single lot satisfies my biggest concerns at the time, and I strongly support moving forward.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Barnett?
I was satisfied before and remain satisfied.
Fair enough. Commissioner Wallace?
Just thank you to staff. I think it's great, and I think the residents in that area will appreciate what will be in this location. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any questions or comments from members of the audience? Any final questions or comments from members of the Village Council on these 4 items? All right, very good. Well, as mentioned, no action is being taken tonight. This will be back on a future council agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll move on to item E on the first reading agenda, also presented by Stan. Stan.
Welcome back.
Thank you, Mayor. Long time no see.
I missed you.
I did. Proposed special use, special service area for 3600 Lacey Road. So this project is at the corner of Finley and Lacey Road here. It's the large parcel here. In November, we subdivided the one lot into 3 lots and 2 outlots, with outlot A being a stormwater detention facility and outlot B being a natural area. The proposed SSA tonight is being proposed to put into place so that if the association that owns all the lots were to not take maintenance of the outlot and the stormwater systems, then the village could then come in and maintain those systems and levy a special tax to cover the cost of that. So this is the first step in a multi-step process to propose the SSA. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you this time.
Sure, thank you. And this is a approach that is of relatively recent vintage, although when I say relatively recent vintage, that could be 7-8 years. But it is something that there's a mechanism the village started doing, I don't recall now, but it was
7-8 years ago.
okay, 7-8 years ago. Before this was utilized, we would be faced with the issue of subdivisions, and mostly subdivisions that would be improved with some sort of a pond or other water feature where it looked all great and it was left primarily to the maintenance obligations of the surrounding homeowners. But over the passage of much more time than 7 or 8 years, there were occasions on where, for whatever reason, that feature was no longer maintained and it became a problem. And we were left with very little ability to do anything about it because we didn't have ownership control. So this mechanism has been fairly routinely put into place ever since the village started undertaking this initiative. And I don't believe enough time has passed where we've encountered any situations, or actually that's where I'm going with this, even though it's not directly on topic, is I think I've asked this before, how has it been working out? Have we had enforcement situations where because of this mechanism we've been able to address things that previously we weren't able to?
We haven't had any situations of homeowners associations failing to maintain. That is a good thing. But it usually occurs more like 20 or
Right.
so years down the road. So we're going to continue to monitor. We have seen evidence of this process and approach working in other municipalities. So, so far so good.
Right.
We'll continue to monitor.
I do realize it's early, and I may have to come back to the podium in about 15, 20 years and ask that question to get an answer. Other questions or comments from members of the council? Any questions or comments from members of the audience? Very good. Next item, please.
Next item is item F. It's an ordinance authorizing a franchise agreement with Nicor. And here to present information on this item is our village attorney, Enza Petrarca.
Good evening, Ms. Petrarca.
Good evening, Mayor. The next item is an ordinance extending our Nicor franchise agreement for 25 years. It allows Nicor to continue to construct, operate, and maintain a system for the production, distribution, and sale of natural gas throughout the village. Similar to our existing agreement, it requires that Nicor improvements not interfere or damage our village improvements, and requires Nicor to indemnify the village for any damage that may occur. In exchange for that, Nicor provides the village with a specific amount of therms or natural gas at no cost to the village. As I said, it's a 25-year agreement and consistent with the form agreements and franchise agreements with all our surrounding municipalities. So, yeah, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions or comments from members of the council? Commissioner Waldeck.
Thank you. I'm so glad that we're changing this from a 50-year to a 25-year.
We try.
Especially since we're going, as we move forward with new sources of energy and the like, I think 25 years is much more appropriate. So that's a good sign. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments from the council? Any questions or comments from members of the audience? Very good. Last item, please.
The last item is an ordinance that has to do with amending the 2017 fiscal year budget. This is one of the most often misunderstood actions that the council will take. And so here to provide more information and clarify this action is our finance director, Judy Bucket.
Good evening, Ms. Budney. Thank you for being here to illuminate us and
Certainly.
lead us out of the darkness and into the light.
Certainly. We've prepared an ordinance to amend the FY17 budget. There are two funds in the budget that need to be amended. The first one is the TIF debt service fund, and that amendment is for $2.3 million. This is due to an accounting entry required to record the transaction for refunding TIF bonds last year that saved us $123,000 in net present value savings for the village's debt service. So that's a very good news item. The second item is a library debt service fund in the amount of $1,760. This is to transfer the debt service balance into the general fund for the library. Their board voted to close the fund since the debt service was paid off in 2017. Happy to answer any questions.
So I'd say this is a little confusing because due to state regulations and accounting rules, this has the appearance that we spent too much money or overspent our budget, when in actuality, in both cases, we incurred cost savings, but how you have to run it through your budget has the appearance of overspending. So I just wanted to reiterate that both of these items were due to savings, not over expenses. And the first one is measured at over $120,000. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions that you have.
Sure. And the first item, this occurs every time we refinance bonds to take advantage of lower debt costs, thus the savings we're talking about, because we lower our debt costs and we refinance the same amount of money or lower amount of money, depending on what the principal is at that time, at a substantial interest savings cost. But you have to actually refinance and spend the money to buy down that debt, and thus the expenditure, which is not budgeted for because we don't know when these opportunities are necessarily going to arise, but we have a nice parameters ordinance that allows staff to jump on these opportunities whenever they arise to allow us to save. This time it was $120,000, but in the past we've saved almost $1 million sometimes on some of these debt refinances. So this is very good news. But in the efforts of the state to have a lot of transparency, we have to report a lot of things that cause a lot of confusion and raise even more questions. So it's worth the time to explain that this is something that is necessary, but is actually very, very good news. And the second item was basically debt being paid off, and there was some change left in the couch cushions, and the library is just moving it from one pot to another.
Well said, Mayor.
Questions or comments from the council? Commissioner Waldeck.
Oh, I always get a kick out of this one. We're adjusting a budget. We're not changing our books on what we spend and what we earn. It's just the budget portion. And the way I always understand it, if it was strictly income, we wouldn't have to report anything.
Correct.
But the fact that we spent anything means we have to go through this process. And I think it's funny. It's like moving the dartboard to meet the dart. So anyway, and I'm sure this can't be on the consent agenda next meeting, can it?
No, it cannot, it's an ordinance.
State law.
I wish they'd change that one too.
But actually, this is an opportunity to explain something very good that we were able to do and that staff was able to do to ultimately save our taxpayers' money. So I'm actually embracing the opportunity to explain what this is all about, because I think this is something that is too often misunderstood, and I think that these are opportunities that we should explain how we're ever vigilant in looking for these opportunities and exercise them when we can.
You convinced me, Mayor. I'm looking forward to having this on the active agenda next time. Thanks.
How about that? Thank you. Other questions or comments from members of the council? Now that we've taken 15 minutes to explain it, are there any questions or comments from members of the audience? Everybody's got it. Awesome. Perfect. Great.
That ends our first reading tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That brings us to item 8, which is the mayor's report, and I have a number of things to report tonight. First, lest I forget, I want to remind everybody that Coffee with the Council, the next one for April, is this Saturday, April 21st, from 9 a.m. until 10 a.m. And just can't do them outside yet, can we?
Not quite.
No, unfortunately. We may have to plow first, but we're going to have this one at the Downers Grove Public Library again. This is an opportunity for members of the public to come out and meet with members of the Village Council on an informal basis. So again, that's this Saturday, April 21st, the Downers Grove Public Library from 9 a.m. until 10 a.m. If you have any other questions or comments about anything related to the village, representatives will be there and we'll be happy to see you. We're very, very, very anxious for the day when we can hold these outside at the farmer's market again. That would mean that the winter has finally passed. Second, I want to remind everyone that Founder's Day is coming up on May 6th. There are lots of activities coming up that are associated with Founder's Day. One of them is that the Friends of the Edwards House is hosting a Landmarking Your Historic Property as part of the Historic Home Program, which will be at the Downers Grove Public Library. Seating is very limited for this always popular program. It is taking place at 3:30 p.m. on May 6th, on Founder's Day, 2018. For more information about landmarking your historic property, you can contact Friends of the Edwards House at friendsoftheedwardshouse.com is the website. You can get all kinds of additional information there. There are lots of activities surrounding Founder's Day, which we'll talk about between now and then. Next, I wanted to also congratulate the Downers Grove South Special Olympics basketball team, our state champions. They won the state championship. Very exciting news. And I know we're going to try to reach out to the team and their coach, Kevin Ahrens. Congratulations on that victory. See if they can be here to be honored and recognized. And of course, the parade is getting very crowded. We have lots of very special people. I don't know what the plural of marshals is, so we have to come up with one, but we're going to have lots of, I guess it's marshals. We're going to have multiple parade marshals. I would say marshal eye or something like that. That sounds much better. So congratulations to the team. That's a terrific accomplishment. Then, unfortunately, on a much sadder note, I want to extend the entire village's condolences to the family of Marie Szabo, who passed away very recently at the age of 100 years old. Marie Szabo was a very special person in the village of Downers Grove because she is the mother of Officer Richard Barth, who is the only police officer ever to be killed in the line of duty in service to the village of Downers Grove. For many years, it was my privilege to talk with Ms. Szabo at the annual Officer Barth Memorial Ceremony, which I believe this year will be in the middle of May. I think it's the week of May 13th, which is always National Law Enforcement Officer Week. And she will be deeply missed at that event. Our condolences to her entire family. She was the beloved grandmother of 6 and great-grandmother of 16. And looking forward to expressing our condolences. Well, never looking forward to expressing condolences, but expressing our condolences now to her daughter, Richard Barth's sister, Ruth Stocker, who I'm sure will join us at the ceremony again this year. But our thoughts and prayers and condolences to the entire family of Richard Barth on the passing of his mother. And I have a couple more items, but I'll save those until we get to the council member reports. So with that, I will turn things back to our village manager for item 9. Village manager's report, please.
No report tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Ms. Petrarca, village attorney's report.
Thank you, Mayor. 7 items to present tonight. The first is an ordinance vacating a portion of a public alley immediately south of 2125 Ogden Avenue. An ordinance amending the zoning ordinance to designate the property at 2125 Ogden Avenue as Plan Unit Development Number 60 and to authorize a commercial redevelopment for Power Mart. An ordinance rezoning property located at 2125 Ogden Avenue. An ordinance authorizing special uses for the property at 2125 Ogden Avenue to permit a drive-through restaurant and a fueling station. An ordinance proposing establishment of the Special Service Area Number 10 for the Bridgeport Downers Grove subdivision at 3600 Lacey Road. An ordinance authorizing a franchise agreement with Northern Illinois Gas Company to construct, operate, and maintain a gas distributing system in and through the village of Downers Grove. And an ordinance amending ordinance number 5572 in the village of Downers Grove budget for fiscal year 2017. All of these items will be on the May 1st active agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That brings us to item 11, which is reserved for village council member reports. This is an opportunity for members of the village council to either share with those here and those watching at home items of interest and other goings-on in the community, or to share a report to the rest of the council with respect to their role as a liaison to some other public entity. I'll start with my left tonight. Commissioner Barnett, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. No report tonight.
Thank you. Commissioner Earl.
Yes, In conjunction with the Founder's Day activities, Pierce Downer Heritage Alliance is sponsoring a wildflower walk. They've done this for a number of years over at Lyman Woods. This one will be Saturday, April 28th at 1 p.m. You can find more information at pdha.org. And they have a volunteer naturalist who leads this hike, and you never know what's going to be blooming at that time of the year. So sometimes you get more blooms, sometimes you have more wildlife, but it's always a very interesting event, and I encourage you to go to pdha.org and take a look at it. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Commissioner Jose.
Thank you, Mayor. Wanted to remind everybody that the Village of Downers Grove, in partnership with Accurate Document Destruction, is hosting a paper shredding event on Saturday, April the 28th from 8 a.m. until noon here at Village Hall, 801 Burlington, in the lot off of Curtis Street. This is offered free of charge and helps Downers Grove residents try to prevent identity theft. Everybody is allowed to bring one, or I should say every vehicle is allowed to bring one brown paper bag or banker's box filled with personal paperwork. And of course, Accurate Document Destruction is an insured company, and they use a crosscut shredder on site to make sure that everything is destroyed properly. So in case you want to get rid of any documents that are laying around and make sure nobody knows what the heck they said, this is a good opportunity. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Commissioner Waldeck.
Thank you, Mayor. Downtown Management is conducting a wine walk in the downtown on April 26th, which is a Thursday. However, there's a limited number of tickets. They may already be sold out. They have a waiting list. But if you want to check just to make sure, go on downtowndg.org, and you can check the availability there. And there's also a number of Founders Day events from April 24th, which is before our next meeting, through May 6th. So check the website for additional details. And as we get into May, if winter ever goes away, there's a lot of things planned. So there'll be future reports as we get into the better weather. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I understand the wine walk is sold out at 200 tickets, and there's a considerable waiting list. So it promises to be a very well-attended event. Hopefully the weather will cooperate. Thank you.
Put it on their calendar for next year. Keep an eye out for it.
Keep an eye out for it. Commissioner Wallace.
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner White.
No report.
Thank you. I have two more items to report out. As my colleagues know, the Village of Downers Grove, in the not-too-distant past, joined DuPage Public Safety Communications, better known as DUCOM, which is the public safety dispatching organization that dispatches for our community as well as many others. And as one of our roles in there, I also am a member of the board of DUCOM, serving in the role as the secretary on the executive committee. Wanted to report a couple of pieces of information that I thought the community and the council would be interested in. One is every now and then update you on how things are going with the new facility. As you know, DUCOM is building a new facility on the Wheaton Government Campus, which has been under construction for some time. It was reported this morning that the new facility is nearing substantial completion, and that is expected by mid-May of 2018. And tentatively, they're looking at having a ribbon cutting and open house in July, and are hoping and expecting that the facility will be fully operational by August 1st. That's all good news, given that that is still well ahead of the deadline of year-end for an operational date. So I wanted to pass along that good news. Although I understand there'll be some sort of invoice coming for this facility, so I just want to give you a heads up about that. There are a number of communities that participate, and I just wanted to share that news with the community and with the council, because obviously public safety dispatching is very, very, very important to all of our residents. And then the last item I have to report is of urgent importance, and I wanted to let everyone know that despite the weather outside, there are, in fact, only 66 days left until Rotary Grove Fest. Yes, we will have an outside summer street festival. You heard it here first. And with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Mayor Tully, I move the council adjourn.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Burnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you and good night.